The Wicket and the Probably Not. "Have you got your handkerchief, Clem?" my big sister Doddle asked me again. This was the last thing she always said before I went anywhere, like I was a bibby still, not now 4 and 10 and known all around the village as Clever Clem. I nodded, feeling in my pocket for, and then finding, a scrap of cloth from one of our wool sacks. I was sort of not lying then. There wasn't really much room in my smock pockets, you see, not for handkerchiefs as well as all my bits of string and my favourite knots as well. The string we make from wicket wool yarn is both my friend and comfort, better for me than handkerchiefs ever could be. "Remember that Granny's very ill and she tires easily, so try to be a good girl," said Doddle, always the big sister and mother too, as she had to be since Da died and Ma went missing. I nodded at her. Even at the age of 14, and as smart as I was, I knew that there were times when nodding was the best policy, especially with Doddle, who was a lot older than me after all. It's no real distance from where I lived with Doddle and her husband Miles to the Grand's house, and I didn't have to pass any scary places where strangers, or worse, might lurk. This is why I've been allowed to go to the Grand's by myself. Doddle doesn't want to lose any more family, you see. Although it's just a short stretch, sometimes it feels like a journey into a different world, a much older world, one where Ma still lived. Our town of Haveline Mill was built next to the old village of Upper Haveldon during the last king's time, after they'd rebuilt the woolen mill closer to where the river now flowed. Haveline Mill has grown to completely engulf the remains of its forerunner, which now nestles like a precious pearl amongst the flotsam and jetsam of unplanned rapid new growth. Teacher Carson says I'll make a great poet one day. Of the handful of cottages still left in Old Haveldon, the Grand's one is probably the thumb. Awkward and stuck out at a strange angle from the rest of the buildings. In style it may look like an afterthought, but it is wonderful, or so I think. Whereas the house I share with my sister, roomy though it is, has as much warmth and feeling as a cow barn. The Grand's house, though, is full of nooks and crannies and strange cupboards, often in ridiculous places, all full of interesting bits and bobs. It's very large for a small cottage, like all the inside rooms have been jumbled up, rearranged and pushed back into the original structure until it nearly bursts. I loved it there, nearly as much as I'd loved my ma's house, especially when my now barely remember, but much missed, Da was still alive. Or indeed how much I loved string and knots for that matter. Granny isn't doing well. She'd taken to her bed, so I warmed up the soup big sister Doddle had made for us earlier on her stove. Granny supped it gratefully from her spoon, mushroom and spice, and I had mine from a drinking bowl. When the Gran was finally satisfied, or at least too tired to drink any more, she said, "She will be back, you know." I know what she meant. We both knew what she meant. She was talking about my ma, her daughter Ethel. "I know that, Grans," I replied. We'd been over this many times. "She wouldn't leave you both. Wouldn't leave me either," the Gran said. "Of course not," I said, now squeezing her hand tightly. "She had to go and look for the flock when they vanished. Ma knew it too. That's why she shot straight off after they'd gone. Our flock had been the livelihood for the entire family for 5 generations, for many, many years. It was a good flock, and we lived well, because, as was well known, Haveline sheep produced the best wool in the land. Wicket wool. Unbelievably warm, hard-wearing and very tough. It's said a simple jerkin of wicket wool can turn away a knife, and the string it makes can be spun to be near unbreakable. This is because our sheep are allowed free rein of the wicket wood and feed on lush grasses and other such life that grows in the light of the summer wicket gate. Sadly, it's likely that the wicket gate was the flock's ruin as well, as there seemed little other explanation for how they could have vanished so completely. Nobody but Haveline's shepherds go walking in the wicket wood. The Gran dozed off soon after her soup, and I must have too, as the next thing I know, I'm wide awake with her eyes fixed on me, all shiny and bright. "Do you have string?" she asked. "Of course I do, Granny," I replied, keen now as I knew what was to come. Clever Clem, always so very clever. Her hand reached out, almost desperate now, like some men are for drink. Then fetch me some string, clever girl. I gave her various lengths of string from my smock pocket until she found one piece long enough for her needs. Now find yourself another similar piece, Clem, the Gran said. I have a new knot for you. I did as she asked, and we settled to a session of knotting, my favourite time with her. At the Gran's feet, I'd learned to tie sheep shanks, bowlines, Albion braids, sliding splicers and hitchers, barrel slings, gasket coils, sheep bends and clinchers, just as my mother had before me. Now, sadly, Gran's eyes were failing, and her hands, after so many years of handling wicket wool, were gnarled and misshapen. She could still tie a knot, mind. This was a knot like no other I'd ever seen before. I watched her hands fly as she took the running end of the wicket string and essayed overhand loops and underhand loops, making multiple bites along the way. She dressed the string as she went along and added frapping turns around the wraps of a lashing as if it was the simplest thing in the world. I followed as best as I could, but even my nimble fingers were struggling with a remarkable complexity, and when I looked down to execute what seemed to be a jamming knot, I looked up again to see the Gran holding a finished knot of wicket wool string proudly in the air in front of her. It was a knot of such eye-watering beauty, of such elegance and quality, that it took my breath away. I stared, and then looked at the unfinished string in my hand. There was one thing immediately obvious. I can't see how you could possibly get to there, Gran, from what I have, I said, much put out. The working end won't pass through any available loop or bend to arrive where you are, I added with obvious frustration. Well done, my clever Clem. You're right. You can't, Gran says with a laugh. She bends close to me at this point, and I echo her to catch what she now says. You can't make such a knot in this world of widths and heights and depths, so you must finish it in a different place. What did she mean? I looked at the Gran's finished knot and my own effort. I looked and looked until my eyes hurt, and as if from a great distance I heard the Gran add, a different place, as your ma found when she first tied this knot and named it the Probably Knot. Then, as I stared, with Gran's cottage dimming from view around us, the Probably Knot of wicket string grew and grew to fill my vision. Finally, I could see how easy it would be to finish my knot. All I needed to do was reach out and move the standing end through the working end in this other place, as if that was where it always been, always wanted to be, not with my hands, but thinking it there, in the other place. Then, suddenly, I could see other various possibilities of tying, splitting off from this choice. A whole universe of probably knots, all different, but all the same, disappearing into an unknowable distance. But where was this happening? Where was this other place? The wicket string now glowed as if to let me know where. Of course, it was inside the summer wicket gate itself. It had to be. My mind was inside the wicket gate. I felt the Gran nudge me, then nudge me harder still, and the knot disappeared, and I was back in her cottage, a completed probably knot in my hand. I knew something else too. This is where Ma's gone, isn't it, Gran? I said excitedly. She's gone to tie a new probably knot in the wicket gate, a knot where our sheep haven't strayed, and then she'll have the wicket gate take her there to fetch them back again. Gran looks at me, smiles and says, You think that's all she's up to, clever Clem? No, of course not. There had to be something else. She's gone to find some probably where Dar is still alive as well. She has, hasn't she? I was excited now, like I'd never been before. The Gran nodded and then looked sad. I fear she may have got caught in a loop, Clem, following a new probably not, and now she can't find her way out again. Tricky thing that knots are. I will go and help her, Gran, I nearly scream. I'm as good as tying as you are now. I would dearly like to see my girl again, my sweet Clem, said Gran. I fear I don't have much time, and I will be unravelling soon myself. Then I must go, I shouted as I stood. But you must take care, Gran said, now all worry. Your sister would never forgive me if we lost you too. I would never forgive me. I stood before the summer wicket gate in some awe. It truly was a thing of beauty, and the colour and light and heat that came from it was as if it was a gateway to summer itself. Perhaps it was. Who knew where summer went after all? I grasped the wicket string in my hand and held my finished probably not up high. The wicket recognised it immediately and what it was asking, and the gate opened. I stepped forward into glorious, wonderful light, and in my mind I began to tie the knot, the probably knot that would take me to my mother and father and let me bring them home again.